As you can see, over the last week and two, we have been following the instruction of what BITA is all about, which is a strength in understanding, a strength in communication, and a strength in community. Today we have Ian Kilpatrick joining us, and we have Nicole Smith joining us from Geason Training to go over some of the vital importances of things that can take place during the downtime we're experiencing. Last week, we concentrated on a lot of the kind of crisis reaction and emergencies, having different sessions with Evan Smokler, NEMF Ireland, talking about the various grants that are available and things that people can be doing in terms of furlough and stuff like that. And this week, we now are dealing with various topics, and we will do so going forward. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Nicole Smith, who will take us through some of the ideas in terms of where we should be going in thinking about what we should be doing with training in these current times. We will also be joined by Ian Kilpatrick for those of you who have any questions in particular to apprenticeships or funding in the area of funding. So Nicole, if I could ask you to take us through the journey of what we should be doing right now in terms of training.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul, and good evening, everybody. First of all, I'd just like to start this evening's webinar by sending our best and well wishes to all participants during this unprecedented period. At Geason, I think it's fair to say that we ourselves have had to reshape and remodel kind of what we deliver to be able to support where we are at this moment in time. So to just provide a bit of an overview in the first instance, we provide an end-to-end managed training service to support employers in maximising the value of their training, whether that be a budget allowance or whether that be some downtime they want to utilise. Our strategic and operational support focus is on the importance of engaging with our key stakeholders from initial engagement right through to the completion of the Learner On programme, and in some instances, in many instances, beyond that. As a training organisation, it is imperative that the service that we offer has a strong engagement framework that will help shape the future and the success of the partnership that we build with our customers. And Geason's implementation process provides clarity and assurances that we're fully supporting both the learner but also the customer with their individual training needs. Now, for us as a training organisation, we have many arms. So we have funding training in the form of apprenticeships and MVQs, but we also have a commercial arm as well. We do follow a very consultative approach. And one of the key aims for us at Geason is to listen, to build a picture around the existing or the exact needs and the existing needs of the clients that we work with, and then trying to find those potential opportunities where you can utilise time effectively to support your staff with their training needs. There's probably going to be quite a few questions around particularly the funding provision that is currently in place at the moment, and I will come to questions as we go out throughout this section, but just thought I'd share with you some of the things that we've done at Geason to try and optimise the time that we've got and to try and utilise some of the new platforms that are out there to be able to ensure that our learners continue with their learning. As I've said already, at Geason, we are continuing to respond to the unprecedented challenges facing us all. And as we navigate through this new landscape, our priorities firmly remain to protect our staff, our learners, and whilst supporting our customers. And with the advice from the government to stop all non-essential travel, we did have to make this decision to temporarily close our offices and hubs. However, we have and are continuing to deliver all training programmes remotely through a variety of technology platforms, and there is lots out there, lots that are free. Lots that are really good platforms that we are experimenting with and our learners are fully utilising. And I have to say, in my view, is probably going to change the scope of delivery as we move forward and hopefully come out the back end of this pandemic. Our aim is to ensure that any distribution to the service we provide is, or disruption, sorry, we provide is minimal, while safeguarding, protecting our colleagues, learners and customers. So as I said already, we've moved to remote delivery, and whether that's with our existing learners or whether actually that's new learners coming onto programme, we're also signing new learners up remotely. We have adjusted our processes and delivery models to achieve this safely and efficiently, but not forgetting the quality of what it is that we offer, and that is a real consultative, contextualised delivery model that supports both the needs of the learner but also the employer. And there's lots of different ways in which you can do that through training needs analysis, skills matrices, skills scans and forms of assessment. Obviously, there's some exceptions to the rule where remote delivery for some key workers wouldn't be appropriate, and that is where either the learner, the employer or our trainer needs to deliver an aspect of it face to face. However, we have found, and we are working very, very closely with the awarding organisations to find alternative arrangements and opportunities to capture that learner's knowledge, skills and behaviours through remote observations. And there are many platforms that you can use to obtain that. And yes, there are things that sit alongside it to support that. But us as a training provider, we are fully confident that we have what we need and what we require to support those remote observations in those instances. There's been some questions around how we support our apprentices for our apprenticeship provision. So I'll just give you a quick snapshot in terms of what we're doing there. Most important thing is that we stay abreast of what is happening in the sector. It is very, very important for us that we keep up to date with government changes. And just to be clear, we can and we have had clarity now around furlough learners. So learners that have been placed on furlough. Let's start with those learners that are on programme currently. So those learners that are on an apprenticeship and are placed on furlough can continue their learning. They can continue their learning. And equally, we had an update not so many days ago that the 20% equally can continue whilst they are placed on furlough. If there are learners that are coming to the end of their apprenticeship and they're getting to gateway or to that final endpoint assessment, working with awarding organisations to understand what that means. There's been a lot of talk out in the sector about bills, breaks in learning. And for us as an organisation, we are trying to avoid that the best way we can, because we can continue the learning with our learners through those remote virtual digital platforms. Where there are instances of breaks in learning, in the main, that is where the learner requires to sit their endpoint assessment and the endpoint assessment organisation cannot provide a date. So the government has stipulated and the ESFA has stipulated you can at that point put the learner on a break in learning until a date is available to sit that endpoint assessment, and we are supporting with that. I'll come back to learners that are or potential learners, employees that are placed on furlough and whether they can engage with training in a moment. But if we just continue with the learners that are on a training programme, if learners have been unfortunately made redundant, we are working with that learner to try and find an alternative provision. So given the 12-week period, as stated in the funding rules, to try and find an alternative workplace for that learner to continue with their learning. Again, it's paramount that the learners are at the forefront of the decisions that we are making as an organisation. So I mentioned earlier about learners who are requiring observations. So yes, you can do some of the knowledge aspect virtually, but what about the observation piece? Well, as I said briefly already, we're working with organisations to ascertain the most effective and efficient form of assessment, because as we know, there are a variety of forms of assessment and it's not one size fits all. And actually awarding organisations are finding that themselves. City and Girls have said themselves, remote observations can take place as long as it is supported by a narrative that sits behind that. There are some programmes within other sectors outside of construction where that becomes a little bit more challenging, hairdressing for example, but in the main with the programmes that we offer, we are comfortable that the knowledge-based aspect and in some of those observations are being covered, whether that be for apprenticeships, but we're also looking at alternative opportunities for some of our MVQ programs. If you have an employee that has been placed on furlough and they're not on a training program, but you're looking to potentially place them on a training program, they can do that. So they can take part and take the opportunity to upskill their leadership skills, maybe competency around particular programs, whatever that might be. The only stipulation is if the individual wants to take part in a training program, they can do, but they cannot take part in a program that means that the employer has a financial benefit from it. So we just say that again so I'm clear. So the individual, the employee, can take part in a CPD activity, they can do a training program, they can even enroll into apprenticeship, as long as the organisation in which the employee is aligned to does not make money, or that the training does not provide a service for the organisation. So this is about upskilling your employees, your staff, your workforce during this downtime.
So, Nikki, just to interrupt there and ask a question and get on a couple of points that you've made there. So, in terms of furlough, if we want to engage, and I have a couple of people that I want to now engage because they've got a downtime and I'm now able to see that they can actually utilize that downtime. Mm-hmm. And I want to contact Geason and discover what type of activity Geason can tailor make to suit my company. How would I approach that, and who would I contact within the organization that can give me an identity of what I require for the type of person and the type of business that I'm in, and mm-hmm. B, how long will a kind of course of that nature last, and how I can access that right now in current times?
Yeah, great question. I think it's really, really important. It's about contextualization. So there's not one size fits all here. And absolutely, we can provide, as I said at the beginning of this recording, it's a consultative approach. So it has to be contextualized and it has to be personalized. So depending on the organization, we first need to ascertain whether the organization understands what it needs. We've been in instances before, Paul, where companies have acquired new employees through 2P, for example, and they don't know their starting point, or they didn't have a professional development program in place, or an appraisal program in place. So they don't really know. They've got an idea, but they don't really know. So we have done a consultative skills matrix process. You can do that remotely, looking at individual starting points, looking at their understanding of what their starting point is. And then out of the back of that, we can provide potential routes in which we think would be beneficial for that organisation or for those learners.
Right, so the question that was asked, just to reiterate here, is can an employee start an apprenticeship whilst in furlough, which you've said and qualified that it can, and how do you deliver the training? So you've also explained there is a route, a defined route that you can deliver that training. How do you deliver the feedback to that training?
Sorry, say that again. How do I deliver the feedback?
How do you deliver the feedback to the training?
To the learner or to the employer?
To the employee, or and both the learner and the employee.
Okay, so in Geason, there's two arms. If it is, are we talking about apprenticeship here?
Yes, by example.
Yeah, so if a learner is signed up to an apprenticeship, they are signed up to it's called a tripartite relationship. So the learner would join a particular program, and that tripartite relationship has a trainer. So the first point of contact for the learner. It has an operational manager who looks at the overall progress of the learner, and then it has the employer themselves. And on a monthly basis, we have an e-portfolio which our employers, our customers can get access to, so you can see virtually how your learners are progressing through that e-portfolio program. And on a monthly basis, a report can be generated and pushed out to that stakeholder so they can clearly see how well the learner is doing, what progresses they've made, and there's something called a progress review that gets done every 6 to 8 weeks with the learner, which the employer gets a copy of for them to also utilise to discuss with the learner how they think they're doing on that programme.
Okay, and how do you deal with the emotional issues that a learner might go through under these circumstances?
So, I mean, I think it's really difficult, as we said at the beginning, these are unprecedented times, and I think for us as an organisation, we are absolutely focused on the safeguarding of any of our learners, regardless of their starting point. We do have a safeguarding lead in the business, and we do have a wraparound support which has key links to external organisations aligned to a range of wider learning aspects. So whether that be a learner feels they're struggling with finances, the learner feels or discloses they feel they're struggling with their mental health, it might be to do with their home situation in terms of their living accommodation. We have really, really good relationships with partnerships in all of our hub areas. So at the moment, although we're working from home, we do have, we're a national organisation, we do have hubs in different regions, and the links and contacts with the stakeholders in those areas and the partnerships in those areas is absolutely paramount. So we have those key contacts for us to realign learners, because at the end of the day, we have to be really important, Paul. We are a training organisation, but it needs to be really clear we're not qualified in probably a lot of the areas that get raised with some of our learners as we go through this period. So having that partnership and having that contact with the appropriate qualified individuals to be able to support those learners, that signposting is really, really important.
Okay. I have a question here. So if a learner is an apprenticeship program, what happens to the 20%?
Funny you should say this. This is actually a great opportunity for the 20%. So there was a webinar that was held on Saturday. The AELP are still lobbying with the government in terms of some clarity on some of the other areas, but actually 20%, it was made very, very clear that that can be done whilst that learner is on furlough. There's always a confusion around the 20% in terms of what it should look like, and in some instances I have heard it be said that it's so many hours a week. That is not the case. 20% is a proportion of the programme length, and in a lot of apprenticeships where it is a success, it's actually done in block delivery. So you can do 20% front-loaded block delivery, and then hopefully we start to come back to normality, and the 20% piece, although you've got a fantastic piece at that front end, you can then add to it as we start get back into the swing of things. So I don't want there to be any confusion about what 20% needs to look like, because it's not 20% of the hours you work in a week, it's 20% of the length and duration of the programme. As I say, that can be delivered in any which way, and this is probably fortunate in terms of having the time and capacity to do that 20% off the job.
Right. Another one that's come in is, what happens if the learner is under national minimum wage? Now, bear in mind, when I throw these questions at you, you know, I don't expect you to have all the answers ad lib, so bear with me as the questions come through.
Yeah, no, not at all. So I presume, I'm going to make an assumption here, if the learner is on furlough, because I'm assuming that's what the question's relating to, we just have to be really, really clear. The DfE guidance is you can deliver training to that learner if they are on furlough. However, the learner has to be paid either the apprenticeship minimum wage, the minimum living wage, or the minimum living wage. If not, it is about, has the employer took the opportunity to look at the 80% support that the government has set. The learner must be, because at the end of the day, they have to be able to still be getting the appropriate wage to continue that training. I don't know whether I explained that very well.
No, you have indeed. You have indeed. in terms of, we have a company here, for instance, which is an example of a company. And I want to put this one to Ian in terms of a typical joinery company. The name of the company is K&D Joinery, and they came through to us with a query. So K&D are CITB registered, both CIS and PAYE. They are probably an ideal company that would have a lot of similarities to a lot of bit members out there. So what I want to do is to give people an idea of typically a company like this, what is the process in terms of engagement with Geason to A, ascertain what they're entitled to in terms of funding, and B, the different types of training that you could actually give to a company of this nature.
Yeah, sure thing, Paul. It's a question we get asked a lot. I see a wee bit of deja vu going on here. I go back to September 2008 when, if we can all remember the times when we turned on the telly and watched Lehman Brothers walk out their office with their bags. Whilst it's a very different situation, the similarity I'm finding at the present moment in time, especially from our own business and other businesses connected to, is that there was very much a cash flow issue and a lot of effort, a lot of focus on what the unknown journey that we're going to be going on over the next couple of months, 2 or 3 months, if not a little bit more, what kind of impact that's going to have on the cash flow of the business. And that kind of pulls me back to the stories in 2008 and the type of advice. So sorry if I'm going around the wrong way to answer this, Paul, but, you know, we were selling training pre-2008 and a lot of businesses at that point in time were paying cash and so on and so forth. And then the wheels very much stopped, as we expect potentially that they might happen at the present moment in time, because, you know, people spending on cash might be on training might be seen as a bit of a luxury at the present moment in time that they cannot afford. But what we found is we became experts in the funding market, not just from a central government perspective, but also from a local authority, a local government, and trade associations, and businesses like the CITB and things like that are construction focused. And the education to our customers at that point was an absolute pivotal, and for them to understand that training does not need to be a cash burden on the business. It's mandatory that we develop people in many occasions, and the health and safety and the well-being of these individuals is absolutely paramount at a time like this. Training such as through partner organisations with Lighthouse, trying to get the well-being training and the mindfulness training. These are all absolutely critical elements of what we need to be focused on moving forward. What I find quite frustrating, to be honest, Paul, is the focus. I believe, and I'm going to be quite strong with my words here, certainly from a construction perspective, we need to use this time to understand the opportunities that do exist for organisations, because if I'm being honest, as a sector, as an industry within construction, we're not as good as we should be at understanding what financial support is actually available from organisations like the government and the CITB, and I'm going to talk quite specifically about the CITB. So, for example, the CITB have come out over the last couple of weeks, and as they do, they support the industry really well in situations like this. The first bit of advice I would be saying to the organisation that you mentioned there, Paul, was number one, are they claiming down what is owed to them at this moment in time? Now, generally 90–95% of the time, the answer is no at the moment. And organisations need to hone in on understanding what actually is due to them from a training grant perspective. Now, my view historically over the last few years is construction companies just don't put the time and resource into understanding that. I would say now is a perfect time for people to start to educate themselves on what available grants and funding is out there for the organisations. CITB, for example, let me give you two examples. So last year they had a £22 million underspend. The reason why they have the underspend, it's not because they want the underspend, it's because the industry is too slow at claiming back the grant. Now, the CITB have just done an initiative at the moment and give you an idea of the help and support that these guys are trying to do. If you have an apprentice on programme, and they have been on programme for a couple of years now, and if that apprentice is generating CITB grant, the CITB have put an initiative in place with immediate effect on the 8th of April, where they will forward the completion payment for that apprentice into your bank account long before it's actually due. So if you have a second year apprentice on programme just now, you can complete one bit of A4 paper, a simple document, send that document back to CITB, and they will pay you £2,500 cash for the completion payment, bringing forward the completion payment for that apprentice. Now, try and put that in monetary terms for these guys. The CITB are expecting this will affect about 7,500. There's about 7,500 apprentices in the UK that are on second and third year apprentices. You multiply that by £2,500. That's effectively the CITB going into the bank and saying we're prepared to inject £18 million into the industry at the present moment in time to help with the cash flow problems that the businesses have got. So that's the first piece of advice. I would be saying there is an organisation there that historically the too many people within the construction industry look upon them in the wrong way. They need to start opening up their knowledge, and they need to start opening up their education on what exactly is possible from the CITB. They're a great organisation. They fund it well. Yes, they take a level. Well, we all understand that. But the reality situation is you do not claim your money back well enough. So that company there, 2 or 3 things they can do, Paul, for their CITB currently are also offering a skills training fund. So any of you CITB registered companies out there, construction companies, if you are paying your CITB levy and you are paying for training, then you need to stop what you're doing and understand that a simple application, we can do this for you, but a simple application can be written to the CITB where if you employ between 100 people or less, they will instantly send you a cheque for between £5,000 and £10,000 to pay for any education that you need for your construction guys. If you've got a business that employ more than 100 people, anywhere between 101 and 250 people, the CITB will send you a cheque for up to £25,000. That is literally write an application. They will assess the application at the end of April. Anywhere between 14 and 21 days later, that cheque will land in your bank. The CITB will send you a cheque, and that is hard cash put into your bank. And you now have 12 months in order to utilise that money for training. The money can only be spent on training, but you think of that from a business perspective. There is an organisation that is absolutely supporting the industry at this point in time. My advice to every single one of you just now is, number one, you either pick up the phone to Geason immediately and get every single opportunity that's available to you, or number two, you do it yourself. Go to the CITB website, educate yourself, give yourself a few hours on that website, because they are an absolute support network at the present moment in time. They're throwing tens of millions of pounds of support at the industry to make sure that if you need training, if you need to develop staff, you do not need to be dipping into your cash flow in order to do that.
Well, this is what we actually wanted to highlight today, because in terms of the portal and what we're doing with the portal is we are currently searching for the value that's out there, be it in terms of crisis management, in finding a solution to something going forward, or the value that's out there that's sitting there that can actually be focused on. And this is a prime example of how members can focus on training. They mightn't have had focused on it before, but they can do that now. And what you're saying to me is that Geason have the assistance, the Geason have the programs, and they have the wherewithal to be able to help any BITM member do exactly that and access this cash at this point in time.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, for example, you know, the industry cash flow is a big challenge. Listen, it's a big challenge for most businesses in the country at the present moment in time. Even if you are cash rich, you want to be protecting your cash. But at the same extent, as I've already mentioned, I see Bill's on the call as well, this whole sort of well-being and the protection of people's, you know, minds at the present moment in time has probably never been more important at this moment in time. The suicide rate in construction pre-coronavirus was shocking in itself. I dare to think that could spike over the next few months. But that involves the development of people spending time with individuals and training and educating these people. That all involves spending cash, and that's cash that people are going to be very cautious of getting into their back pocket and utilising that. The point I'm making, Paul, is CITV and Geason Training, we can show you right now how that one example does not need you do not need to be spending cash in order to make sure that you're looking after the well-being of these individuals. There is grant available, there is training grants, training funds available in order to make sure. Now, CITV have also relaxed the rules on the rules in order to make sure that, you know, from the skills training fund, the rules have been relaxed recently. So that £10,000 could be spent on the well-being of your staff or the training for a specific type of construction equipment. So please take it away from this session that please don't think that the development of your people, you know, the future development of your people is restricted by cash flow, because it does not need to be. You just need to educate yourself on what's available, or you just need to lean on experts like ourselves in order to understand, yes, I want this to happen, but I just can't afford to do it just now, because we do have answers for that.
Okay, Nicole, just another question that's come in as well is, in terms of providing leadership training that's not associated with apprenticeships, what other forms of training that Geason do facilitate in that regard? So
again, leadership is a large umbrella in which lots of different strands can come under that. So I suppose it's ascertaining exactly what it is an organisation is looking for, and then how can we accommodate that. I think one thing I do want to say in regards to what we do here at Geason is we don't just think about the content in which we deliver, but it's the way in which we deliver it. And I don't want people to be fearful of technology. Technology, for some, is a brand new platform, but it's an exciting platform. It's an exciting way to engage with learning. So, you know, if we were putting any, and as we do at the moment, we've had to retrain some of our learners because we've had to change very quickly overnight in terms of the way in which we deliver, whether that be, we do have some leadership qualifications, we have some professional services, but in the main it is we do have construction. We also think about how we train people to access the platforms, to access the learning, and that comes part and parcel with our service. So again, you know, I think it's important that individuals, when they are engaging with any type of training, whether that be with Geason or whatever training that is you're looking to do, don't be afraid to ask how you are going to be supported to access the type of training that is currently on offer by utilising new platforms. So going back to your original question, Paul, in terms of leadership, again, it depends what's under that umbrella. If it's to define morals and values, ethos and culture, that's one thing. If it's to look at a particular leadership method that you want to fully embed into your organisation, or it may well just be that actually you find that you have your own internal training program that you want to have some advice and guidance on how you can possibly turn that into a delivery model. We're more than happy to have those conversations and understand what it is you're looking for, and for them just to understand whether we can help and support. And I'm sure we can in most instances.
Okay, Paul Craft has asked a very, very interesting question here, and I'm going to put this one to Ian if I could. I was in a meeting with HBF, and CITB earlier. They stated that Site Safety Plus can be delivered online now. Not many providers are aware of this. Can Geason help and get this delivered, Ian?
Yeah, for those of you that are unaware, that we're now part of a larger organisation, and within the group now we now have a substantial business that delivers all the short duration courses. So when I talk about short duration courses, I mean courses that last for anything between an hour and 5 days. So your Site Safety Plus, your SSMTS, all those types of training are absolutely within our catalogue now, Paul. The key element that we are bringing into this is it's not just about coming in and delivering the training. Nicole talks about the new techniques that are going to be coming into the market, making sure that we can do as much of this electronic as we can. But what we also specialise in doing is making sure that every single penny of grant that's available for doing these courses is not just brought to the table, but we also do the administration paperwork for that. So, for example, if we're going to be charging £100 for somebody to do a course and there was £50 grant available for that course, we would also do the administration element of that to make sure that the grant would come back into the business. Also, from that perspective, I would be interested to look at that organisation and understand now, firstly and foremostly, they've got a requirement for a specific bit of training. Yes, I understand that, but my first question to that business would be, Paul Croft, have you claimed down the skills fund? Have you claimed down or have you investigated all options of grant that could be attained to that or to that course? That would be the first question I would like to ask Paul, and then investigate then what kind of delivery is required from the specific course,
Okay, and finally, before we wrap up, I'm unconscious of time. There is one more question that I would like to ask, and that's from Martin Mokler. And is there a minimum number of employees required for medium-sized companies to be able to apply for the £25,000 skills and training fund?
Yes, you have to have. This is employees, so PAYE. So for the £25,000, you need to have, in your last levy return, Martin, you need to show that you employed between 101 and 250 employees. That's PAYE. That does not include your any labour-only subcontractors that you might have had in the business. That's only PAYE. If you were successful, if you were within that eligibility criteria and you did pay your CITB levy, then you could spend the training on your labour-only subcontractors. So it's not specifically just designed to, you can spend the training pretty much any way that you require at the moment. But Paul, the quote that I try to say to my customers, whether it's a £10,000 grant or a £25,000 grant, when you look at the margins that this amazing industry that we work in, to put £25,000 into training, you need to generate a lot of revenue, too much revenue. And that's the way I would like everybody on the call to think about. That application would take us thick end of about 4 hours to develop for you. 4 hours of work that we're prepared to do to you for absolutely free. We would probably need an hour of your time, as Nicole said, to conduct some sort of training needs analysis on your business, find out exactly what it is you need. 4 hours later, we send the application to CITB, you're getting a cheque for 25 grand. That's, at this time, in this world that we're living in at the moment, that cannot be knocked. And if you are eligible for that, please find the time to make sure that you grab that opportunity. It's a lot of money,
And the last question is, can organisations sign up to CITB now so they can take advantage of these savings? We
have sent new 6, we're on Tuesday night, and our telesales team are speaking to customers on a daily basis, Paul. This week alone, that's 2 working days, we have sent 6 applications to the CITB of businesses that want to become CITB registered. The minute that that process should take about 8 weeks for it to go through the chain. The minute that they receive their CITB registration number, they can immediately apply for one of those grants. It's an absolute no-brainer.
Okay, well, I'd like to just kind of reiterate everything that's happened here today in terms of value. This is a typical example of how this portal can provide value to companies and allow you to access in extremely challenging times ways to actually create funding and create value for your companies. So for those of you who want to get more information on this, you can access this recording at www.bitacommunity.org, and we will have this recording in terms of information in around an hour's time. Also, if you want to contact Geason Training, please do so through Laura at BITA, and Laura will send on the details of both Nicole and Ian. Ian, I'd like to thank you very much for your time today, and Nicole for your great presentation. And I would remind people that this portal is only beginning. Value is only being accessed now. So going forward, we will have more information in terms of what Geason are doing. We will have more information in terms of what other companies are doing and members of BITA. And we hope you enjoyed this session, and will there be many more. Thank you very much and take care.
Thanks, Paul. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.